Hey, it's Thursday. You have a few minutes to talk about the Parsha?
Sure, let's go.
So this week's Parsha, Parshat Pinchas, we find in the beginning of the Parsha the story of Pinchas saving Am Yisrael from the plague. And really, if you ask people what is the most significant story within Parshat Pinchas, what is Parshat Pinchas about, most of the people will probably tell you it's about Pinchas saving Am Yisrael and Pinchas stepping up, like the same story we read at the end of last week's Parsha. However, when you look at the Parsha itself, the story of Pinchas is only the first 6 psukim, and it's not even the most significant story within the Parsha. Within the Parsha, probably the most significant story is HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling Moshe Rabbeinu that he's about to die, and Moshe asking for a decent replacement for himself, and Yehoshua becoming the replacement for Moshe. As we know, in today's world, when leaders change, it's a big event, it's a big happening. It affects our daily life, it affects everything around us. Why is this story hidden all the way at the end of the Parsha, receives a lot less rating than the story of Pinchas? Why isn't this Parsha actually called Parshat Yehoshua? Why is it called Parshat Pinchas?
Very interesting question. I think myself, if you would ask me what this Parsha is about, almost forget about that point. And one of the amazing things about it is the Psukim even describe the fact that this is all done in front of Am Yisrael. You know, he puts his hands on Yehoshua's head, and what does Am Yisrael say? Their one and only leader was just replaced, and you don't even see their response. It flows, continues as if nothing happened. But I think this actually fits perfectly with Yehoshua's leadership. Often today, when there's a new leader who steps in after a well-accepted leader, he has to be noticed, right? He wants people to notice him. He'll make even changes which aren't needed just to make a point, to leave an impression. He sometimes can destroy things that were actually working well just so people notice him. And you know, Yehoshua seems to be the exact opposite. All Yehoshua wants to do is to continue Moshe. At the beginning of Sefer Yehoshua, the words Hashem uses and also Am Yisrael use is Kasher Hayiti im Moshe ken eyeh imach. Hashem says, just like I was with Moshe, I'm going to be with you. And Am Yisrael turns to Yehoshua and says, we'll listen to you, we'll follow your leadership, but we want that as God was with Moshe Rabbeinu, he will be with you. We want you to continue Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's how Yehoshua sees himself. Chazal say that Yehoshua was like the moon and Moshe Rabbeinu was like the sun. And we know back in the Midrash in Bereshit where we have the moon and the sun, and the moon turns to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, how can there be two kings? In a sense, the moon saw itself as another sun. What is the moon actually? It has no light of its own. It's reflecting the light of the sun. And the mistake the moon made is just like a mirror who's reflecting an image of a king will turn to the king and say, you know, we can't have two kings. There aren't two kings. The key to being a good mirror is being as clear as possible, is being as modest as possible, being able to not put yourself in the way. If the mirror would put itself in the way, it would block the light of the sun. Yehoshua just wants to continue Moshe. The great light that Moshe brings down into the world from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yehoshua wants to continue that. Yehoshua doesn't want a Parsha on his name. As a moon, what Yehoshua really wants is that even in the darkness, even in the night, when the sun has set and we don't have Moshe Rabbeinu's light, to continue to reflect the light of the sun onto us. This is Yehoshua's leadership. This is how he sees himself, and this is maybe why it's presented the way it's presented. In a way, it fits so much for his leadership to sort of just happen, go unnoticed almost, the way it is in our Parsha.
I agree, and I think that one of the interesting things is you mentioned the Midrash that Pnei Moshe kechama and Pnei Yehoshua kelevana, and the Midrash continues to say over there how the Zkenim shebeoto ador amu oy lanu mota busha oy lanu mota klima. Some of the Mefarshim say about that Midrash, they were not embarrassed by the difference between Moshe and Yehoshua being only a Levana and Moshe being a Chama, but actually they were embarrassed for themselves, because growing up having Moshe as a leader, has been such a great son, you ask yourself, who can even get close to filling in those shoes? But when they saw that Yehoshua was chosen one to become the leader, they understood that all they had to do was be like Yehoshua. They had to be the ones who were there day in, day out, tidying up the Beis Midrash, setting up the learning for Moshe, following Moshe's Torah, and that's all he needed to do. He didn't have to become like the son. He had to be Yehoshua, the Talmud, because he gets his light from Moshe. And I think there's, of course, a lot that we can learn from it for today, for our day and age, with everything that goes on in the world. Many times you see leaders popping up because of one little tweet, because of one little viral video, or because one demonstration that they organize, and suddenly a leader is born. It doesn't work like that. In order to become a leader, you need experience. In order to be a good leader, you have to prepare for it in advance. You have to work for it. You have to live your life for it, just like Yeshua did. Just like Yeshua was nar lo yamish min ha'ol. Yeshua was always there as a nar, cleans up the base midrash, tidies up when is needed, and does any work that is needed for the leadership. That's how you become a real leader. That's how you inherit to yourself the values, the character that is needed to be a good leader, to be a reflection of a great leader that passed away, and you have to continue it. And you know, today's Yitzi BeTamuz, maybe a connection to that is one of the 5 things that happened on Yitzi BeTamuz was butal hatamid, the korban that every single day was sacrificed in the morning, in the afternoon. Not one day went by without that sacrifice being brought to the mizbeach, which we as Jewish people always learn from about the power of a smada, the power of consistency. Maybe that exactly was Yehoshua, who was there day in, day out, all the time, behind Moshe, helping Moshe, and caring with Moshe for Am Yisrael. And maybe that is the difference between Pinchas and Yehoshua. It doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't happen on the spot. It's about the experience. It's about building up to it. It's about leading a life towards it, and not instantly, out of nowhere, suddenly becoming the leader.
It's interesting that in the Jewish world, our greatest spiritual leaders, we call them Talmidei Chachamim. Instead of calling them wise, call them wise student, which seems like an insult, right? They're students? Yeah, because the leaders, the ones who are most wise, are the ones who know to be a vessel, to take in, to constantly be a reflection of their teachers, to be a reflection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Jewish tradition is always about creating a chain where one is reflecting the one above and the one above is reflecting the one before him. This is what makes Am Yisrael connected, as the Mishnah in Avot says, Moshe kibel Torah miSinai, Masra leYoshua, v'Yoshua lezkenim, v'zkenim leNeviim. That's how Torah is passed, because everyone's not trying to put themselves in the front, but trying to continue what they received from the ones before them.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's not about the instant leadership and wanting to be a leader. It's about building up to it, the experience, working hard until you get to it. Love it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Always fun talking Parsha with you.
Great. So we'll do it again next week.